Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you so much for attending this session on becoming a writer. My name is Paula Neal. I'm a children's book author of I'm Gonna Have a Good Day. Breathe, Gabby, Breathe, and Gabby Meets Kindness. And I'm so glad here to be with my fellow authors, Amanda Flowers. I'll read her bio first. Hold on, Amanda.
Hello.
Amanda Flower is a US Today best-selling and two-time Agatha Award-winning author of over 50 mystery novels. Her first Emily Dickinson mystery, because I Could Not Stop for Death, was an Agatha Award winner and Mary Higgins Clark nominee. I Die for Beauty is the third book in the series. She's a former librarian. Flower and her husband own a farm and recording studio. And they live in the Northeast Ohio with their adorable cats. The insight right there. Next, we have Miss Julie Hatcher is an award-winning and best-selling author of mystery and romantic suspense. She has published more than 50 novels under multiple pen names since her debut in 2013. Writing as Julie and Lindsey, Hatcher has earned many accolades for her work, including the 2020 National Reader's Choice Award for Romance Adventure and the 2019 Daphne du Maurier Thank you. Award for Mystery Suspense, among others. When she's not creating new worlds or fostering the epic love of fictional characters, Julie can be found in Kent, Ohio, enjoying her blessed Midwestern life and probably plotting murder with her shamelessly enabling friends like Amanda. No, it's fine. Today she hopes to make someone smile, but one day she plans to change the world. And then back from our first session, Patricia Sargeant is a national best-selling author. She writes romance as Patricia Sargeant and Regina Hart, and mysteries as Olivia Matthews. She's published 35 books, 14 of them independently. She's also written for traditional publishers, including Kensington Publishing Corporation, Penguin Publishing Group, Harlequin Publishing Corporation, Hallmark Publishing, and St. Martin's Press. Okay. So we're gonna do here, since we have 3 participating authors here on the panel, I'm gonna ask some questions, and then we're gonna leave 10 minutes towards the end for actual Q&A. Okay. Okay, so my first question is to whoever wants to go first. How can someone get started in this business, and how did you? What's up here too?
So I got started, I wanted to write since I was a little girl, and right when I was in college, I started writing my first novel, and I started submitting to agents. So I went the very traditional route. I got a literary agent and sold my first novel. So that's one way to do it. Other ways to do it are through writing contests that agents or publishers are putting on. Also, I highly recommend joining your local chapter of whatever your genre is. So for Julie and I and also Patricia, we're sisters in crime, and Julie and I live close to each other. So we're in the same chapter in Northeast Ohio. So there's organizations for children's books, fantasy books, science fiction. So that made a big difference for me, because when I started, I didn't know anything about publishing, and just being around these like very knowledgeable authors was very helpful.
Yeah, I would say our local sisters in crime, they publish prolifically. I got a lot of my questions answered directly from them. Also, Google was my best friend. Like I started, my very first query was how to write a book. And I found a whole world of people doing exactly that. And every writer I've ever met has 100% been ready to spend as much time as I needed to tell me absolutely everything that they could tell me about writing to help me. So yeah, I would second that. Local chapters and then just Google. There's so many sites, and Facebook. Facebook gets a bad rap for good reasons sometimes, but they have lots of groups for writers too, and any kind of different type of writing that you're doing. And they're in there just sharing their experiences and what they're doing and what works for them. And I still look at a lot of those, especially the self-pub ones, because that's been harder.
I don't like this microphone. I, can you hear me? I second everything that Julie and Amanda have just said. The professional writing groups help you to learn what you don't know that you don't know. Yeah. And networking with other authors, you can improve your craft a lot more quickly than trying to do this stuff on your own.
Okay, so as a self-published author, one of the biggest questions I get is, how did you become an author? And they'll tell me about all these wonderful stories they have in their head, but it's never written down. And then I always say, can you just please write it down first? Then you can discuss the other piece with me later or what have you. When you guys are trying to give advice to someone that wants to be an author, but they haven't even put it down on paper. Now I always tell people that when it's in your head, you make it bigger than what it really is. But if you put it on paper and just start writing, think about it, you'll be fine. What's some of the best advice that you have given? I know you talked about using Google, for certain literary agents, and just writing. What's some of the best advice you've given to get someone on that road?
So I think the best thing, well, the one thing you have to do is finish your book. And I did, I did like a keynote on this topic recently, and I don't remember the exact numbers, so you have to forgive me there. But there were a couple colleges that just went out into their communities, different parts of America, and just asked, hey, do you think you've got an idea for a novel? And 85% of the people that answered just at random said, yeah, I think I have an idea, or I just have an, so the vast majority of people think they have an idea and they might one day write it down. But then the amount of people that start writing their novel, it drops to, I don't know, 25%. And from there, it drops to like 1% of people that start ever finish their novel. And then from there, it's like 100. It's in the hundreds of a percent of people that get published. And it's not because publishing is the hardest thing in the world, or I wouldn't have done it, and because self-publishing is available. It's just that somewhere, I don't know if we get scared, we get intimidated, we get in our heads, but I think the best thing you can do is just write your book. And if you've got it in your heart to write a book, it's probably because you're called to write a book. Because I don't know, not everybody can write a book. So if you've got it, you've got to do it. You got to see it through.
I'd agree with that. And writing a book, it's too hard to do if you don't love it. So if writing is not your passion and you don't love it, there's a lot of other things you can do and be very successful at it. But I think in the case of the three of us, like, if we one day gave up writing, it would be like giving up part of ourselves.
Sure.
Yeah, I agree with Amanda. Giving up writing would be like giving up my arm. And I also think when you hold on to something for so long without even trying to start, you make it, the monster in your head, bigger and bigger and bigger. So you need to reclaim your power and just start writing. It doesn't have to be perfect when you start. It just has to be.
Let's talk about the craft behind your books. You guys love mysteries, obviously. Okay. And you have a lot of readers that love your mysteries. Okay, so, and there's so much dynamics involved getting it out of your head and put it on the paper. What was your process, your own individual process to create your masterpiece?
We always have the opposite.
Yeah, we're the two sides here. Two extremists. I'll go straight. Oh, yeah. So I plot out my book. I know that roughly I need 80,000 words. So in this industry, they don't go by how many pages is your book. Everyone in the industry wants to know how many words is it. And a novel is great middle road. 80,000 words is a novel in just about any genre. That's acceptable. So I know that I like my pages, or 10 to 12 pages is a good length without being too long or too short. I know I need, about 27 chapters. And then I put bullet points on what I know needs to go in chapter 1 all the way through. I make sure that the clues are going. So I by the time I'm done with this, my outline is maybe 15 pages long, but it reads like Wikipedia. I can read it and see what every single scene is going to be all the way down to, I did this by going to all the books that were like my book, and I would write down the key things that happened in each chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, and then I would find the pattern. Okay, by page 50, somebody dies. By, she's accused by page 55. And then I made sure that that's all the targets, all the points that were my manuscript would hit, all these things. So by the time I start writing, I write 1 chapter a day, and I'm done in 28 writing days. And that's not how Amanda does it.
This always makes me so sad when Julie and I are in a panel together, because I am the complete opposite and her way sounds so much better. But I don't have a clue what I'm doing. Every time I start a novel, I don't know who the killer is. I don't know who the victim is. I don't know why someone would kill someone. And then if it's a first in a new series, I don't really know the setting or what random pet they're gonna have that's gonna be their sidekick. So I'm what they call in the industry a pantser, which means I write by the seat of my pants. So my first draft is, no one has ever seen one of my first drafts besides myself, because it's the ugliest thing you've ever imagined. There's incomplete sentences, there's jumping around. I don't write in chronological order, so like things are not in order. And then when I really get into it, it's like revision over revision. So I will revise a novel 4 to 5 times before I turn it in. I don't recommend my method, but it is a method.
It is working.
Wow.
Award-winning author is
Yeah.
working for you.
Thank you.
Julie and I are twins.
Okay.
Because I do what you do.
It helps us with deadlines if you're working with different publishers, because if we know we write so many chapters a day and they say, here, would you like to write this for us? When can you turn it in? I can really accurately guess. Even if it's next year, when I'll be ready, you know what I mean? So it works for me.
The reason that I do it the way that Julie does it is because I'm scared. I'm scared that I don't have a full story. So if I do an outline, then I know I have a full story. So it was fear.
That's a lot of
How much research do you put into your work? Granted, all the ideas are coming from your head, but you want it to be relatable to your readers, and authentic. Like, how much research do you put into your work to get it where you need it to be? Especially in these different timelines.
In my case, my historical's a lot of research, because I write about real women from history that are now crime solvers. So I have to know where they are on the planet at that particular date. Like, I don't want to put Emily Dickinson in Europe or something, because she's never went to Europe in her lifetime. And then I also have to know all the people around them. I was a former librarian, so I love that part. And like the second book in the Catherine Wright series, I got the idea for it from research, because when I was researching Catherine Wright and her family, I found out that, and that's Wilbur and Orville Wright's younger sister, that she went to the World's Fair by herself in June of 1904. And I was like, well, that's a great place to kill someone. I mean, I can't really think of a better place to kill someone than at a World's Fair, where like this everyone from around the world is coming from all these different cultures in this huge melting pot. So, you know, if I hadn't put in the time and found this little sentence, because there's no biographies about Catherine dedicated just to her. So it's just like a quick mention in some book I read. And now it's a whole novel where she's solving a murder in St. Louis.
One of the reasons that I like to do the outline is because then I know what I need to research. So if I decide that a character is going to be stabbed instead of shot, then I could look up.
Yeah.
How long does it take to get, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And if I shot that person in their shoulder, how long would it take to heal? And then I interview police officers and I research the different crime units to see what, if I could find photos of it or get a tour of it. So when I put it in my story, it could be more authentic.
Here's your different answer. For my women's fiction book, I dealt with Emily Dickinson and her being a real person. I did make sure that I did all the research for that. There's a lot of history and historical elements. In my murder mysteries, I keep it easy and straight. Like, I do none of that research. And if I'm not sure what the cops would do, I just think, well, my main character, whose perspective you have, she doesn't know either. So I'm looking it up. I just have her leave.
Oh my gosh.
She doesn't know. She's a Christmas tree farmer. She's a Christmas tree farmer.
But you see, that means that the FBI will never suspect it.
Exactly.
Like, how long did it take?
He's lived in Ohio.
I know. You'd be like, Patricia, why were you looking up straight line?
Yeah. You guys are so passionate about your work. You have it in your mind who the character is, what they sound like, look like, how they gonna heal, everything. How do you, when you're trying, you're all published, traditionally published, and then both. How do you keep the story that you put on paper from not being taken, change, I should say, take away, change once it's in a publisher's hand? Like, how do you keep that? How do you navigate that? Because you're so passionate. Like, you do the research and all. You know how this person is, you know where you want to go with the story, you know, and get a few series after this. But how do you keep the traditional publisher not changing?
So the first step, after you get your traditional contract, the first thing they do is they write you a letter with a paragraph or two about how much they love it. But this is after you've signed the contract because they love your book. So they send you an email and the letter's attached. And the first couple paragraphs, you're just like, oh my gosh,
I'm so good.
I'm so good. They love me so much. And then you get to like the third paragraph and it's like, if we could just change one or two things. And it's like 9 pages long. And by the end of it, you're like, why did they buy this book?
Yeah.
They hate me. They hate my parents. They hate everything about them. But that happens every time. Maybe not always 9 pages, but it always happens. And I always just tell myself, I would say 95% of the time, I just make the change because I think they are highly motivated to sell the book and make sure it makes money and make sure it reaches as many readers as possible. So I need to trust that their editing and editorial department are in those positions because they truly know, you know, what that company is striving for. So I try to hold loosely to my characters. I do try to give over to their advice, and just trust that they're in, I don't know, that it's everybody's best interest.
Yes, that is definitely the case. You get those scary letters. And then I think also, so like with my Amish mysteries, spam call. Oh wait.
He's busy.
I am busy. So with my Amish mysteries, I'm at the point that I've written like over 30 some, and most of them for Kensington, I've had the same editor for 10 years. So she's like, it's cute. I passed it on. So, I mean, occasionally she'll have like one minor thing in the margins to write, but for the most part, because she just trusts me that like I think you know how to kill Amish by this point and do it successfully. So, but I mean, it took a while to get there, and I've been working with the same editor for 10 years. So that was a big help. But she's also my editor for my historicals. And those I do get a letter still. She's like, well, why were they here? Why? I was like, well, because that's where they were, you know, why are they doing this and that? So it just depends.
Sometimes I have had to push back a little bit on what my copy editor or editor has said. For example, I had in one story, a university professor stopped by a neighbor's house at like 6 a.m. before he went to work at this university. And the copy editor wrote in the margin, no one gets to work that early. Well, I worked at a university. The social work professor across the hall from me was often in her office by 6 a.m. because that's when she had her quiet time before the class hours started at 8. So that kind of annoyed me. So I pushed back on that. And also, one other time, the copy editor changed my hero's dialogue so that he was yelling all the time. I said, why did you make my hero so angry? He's not an angry guy. We'll have to tone that down. But for the most part, it's perfectly fine. And sometimes they bring up really good things, but you do need to know when to push back on changes that they make to your plot or your character based on erroneous presumptions that they have.
Yeah, for the most part, I would say they let us too. If we ever do draw a line,
Mhm.
they don't fight us. Okay. All right, your name's going on it.
What would be the breaking point that that this line drawing, but yes, you have 50 books, 30 books, and at this point, they should trust you. Your readers obviously trust you, you have a good following. But what is your breaking point when they come to you one day and say, hey, no, this is it, we're gonna push back on this, we need you guys to do it this way, but you think it's taking them, their suggestions or comments or feedback is taking the book in the wrong direction where you envision. What's your breaking point?
This is only sort of adjacent to that, but I wrote a dark, twisty Appalachian mystery. And my agent sent it, she loved it. She sent it out to maybe 4 or 5 of her top choices. And I'm looking at my audience here. Okay. So all the editors that sent it back and it was a no, they didn't like her because she was angry. And all of these editors, when I asked, I learned they were all men. They didn't understand her absolute rage at the horrible background she had. And they would have liked her to be more palatable. To which I said, we don't have to sell this book. We can sit on it. We can send it to female editors. I can self-publish it, but I'm not, their suggestions just would have made this story just a regular traditional mystery. And then they wouldn't have bought it because they would have said, this is not going to stand out in the crowded mystery marketplace. We don't want it now because there's nothing. So it was, yeah, so that's where we are now. We are at the point where I will have to find a way that I can live with revising her, or I just get to keep my novel. But yeah, anybody else? Nope.
We've got time. Okay, let's stop for a quick second to see if any of you guys have questions.
I have a question. For each of you, do you have a favorite series out of all the series that you've written? I know there are.
I do.
But
Yeah.
I'm just curious if you have a favorite.
Mine is my Emily Dickinson mysteries because they kind of changed the trajectory of my career and have led me to write about other historical women. And also, I'm obsessed with Emily Dickinson, so it's really a dream to write her as a character. And probably the highest moment of my career is when I went to her home and my book was for sale in her kitchen. So that was like the best day of my life. And oh yes, my husband was with me and I freaked out and I ended up hand selling like 3 copies because they're like, why is this girl freaking out? I was like, that's my book. So, and I got to meet with the director of the Emily Dickinson Homestead. It was just like a dream come true. So Emily will always have my heart.
I'm stuck on this. I was gonna say it was my Seaside Cafe Mysteries. There are 7 books in the series. It's complete now, it's done. But before that, my first cozy mystery series that I wrote that earned a paycheck, like that was like a mark in my career where the tides turned. Someone was going to pay for my work. They were called the Kitty Couture series and they were set in New Orleans. I loved them. I still love them. The relationships and the dynamic and everything about that. They've been over for years and sometimes I will write the people into other books. You're not really, I probably shouldn't do that because different publishers, but I'm not over them yet. So I bring them around sometimes and they end up being like Easter eggs to people that do have read from the beginning. Oh, Jack and Lacey were in West Virginia.
I'm sorry. I cannot choose. Because I was gonna say this and then I thought, no, but I love the other one, but no, I love this one too. I'm sorry.
Too hard.
How do you decide if a book is going to be a standalone or part of a series?
What the contract says. Yeah, a lot of times, well, cozies generally are series, like that's almost part of it being a cozy. But with some things, even with like the twisty mystery, as I go back and maybe revise it, I think if I'm gonna revise it anyway, I will write paragraph or 2 pitches for additional books in a series, and then it can be said as this could work as a standalone or as a series. And then you're, just opening the door up and saying, hey, I'm willing to write follow-ups. We hope for that.
Yeah, the characters tell.
Oh,
Yeah, like if they're a bunch of characters and they want their own story. Sometimes I tell them to shut up and sometimes I tell them, okay. It just depends on my mood.
Okay, this is a good question that I just came across. Suggestions on how to improve the writing craft or how to make your writing meet industry standards. Show, don't tell, start your novel in the right place, be mindful of pacing. Someone put here, but suggestions on how to improve the writing so that it meet the standards. What are your suggestions?
Read in the genre that you want to write. So I don't read a ton of, well, I don't read Amish at all anymore other than my own because I don't want any like cross-pollination. But when I started writing Amish, I read a lot of Amish fiction. So if whatever your niche is, really read several authors that are doing really well in that subgenre. So you can that's how Julie got her bullet points of knowing when to hit, like when the person dies and when the body's found and all of that stuff. So that would be my suggestion. So if you want to write science fiction and never read a science fiction novel, that's probably a bad start.
Yeah, that's bad. Yeah, writing groups, writing classes. Sometimes libraries will have writing groups. Almost every town seems to have, or county has a little group of writers where you can just trade what you know about writing with somebody else. And I don't know, I've gotten a lot of motive. Oh, you know what else I did? I wrote for when I couldn't get an agent and I couldn't get published. I typed in open call or submission call for writers. And I found little tiny publishers that didn't pay you any money, but they would publish you. And that created a backlist of books that I had experience writing. And they worked with freelance editors. So these were qualified editors being paid to edit. And so they would take the time with me and say, this is passive voice. And what I mean by that is this. And one way you might want to write it is this. And it was like getting a free master's degree from, being just someone took my hand and walked me through these books. And by the time I had done several books with these smaller publishers, I knew so much more. I was able to find an agent by writing approved. But like you said, I didn't know what I didn't know.
Not knowing what you didn't know, that could really hold you back. There are two books that I love with all of my heart for writing crafts. The first one is Goal, Motivation, and Conflict by Deborah Dixon. That book just exploded my mind and it made my stories a lot stronger. Goal, Motivation, and Conflict. And the second one is The Writer's Journey by Christopher Vogler. And a lot of my friends really didn't like that book. I think they didn't give it a chance. So if you read The Writer's Journey and then you watch, for example, The Terminator, you can, or even Star Wars. Star Wars, the first one, The New Hope. You can see where those pacing points happen. And it's sort of like a class. And then there's this YouTube channel called Readsy, and they have a lot of writing craft videos too.
Yeah, and Save the Cat. Save the Cat used to be for screenplay writers, and I used it to do my novel. And now there's a book, Save the Cat Writes a Novel. And you can go to her website. I sign up for her newsletter. Her name's like Jessica Brody, I think. And she has a worksheet or workbook or something that goes with Save the Cat Writes a Novel, and you can fill in your own information in each of the sections on her thing to organize your thoughts.
That's the funny thing about Save the Cat. I read that book and it made me cry because I don't work. And I couldn't make myself work that way.
I'm never gonna be a novelist if this is what it means. Yeah, that's the most important thing. I hope anybody thinking of writing gets from us is that there's no right way to write a novel. However your brain works, however you approach it is the right way to approach it.
Hey. I want to thank our panel, Amanda, Julie, Patricia. Thank you guys so much for spending this time with us and sharing your valuable goal with everyone. And I want to thank everyone here for sticking around from the last session as well. It's a lot of you guys, and I knew people that come in.
So we want to thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.